Tanzania is a country in Africa that still creates national parks. 1/4 of her land is protected. Despite the continent's ever-growing population, Tanzania's national parks are not just isolated collections of animals. They are wildlife in an African wilderness. Wild places, spectacular and natural, held in trust for the future. Tanzania national parks are the guardians of the planet's last great herds. From the peaks of Mount Kilimanjaro to the depth of Lake Tanganyika, national parks are working hard to preserve the most diverse ecosystems in Africa. By buying this video, you contribute directly to that cause. Now join us on safari as Tanzania National Parks, together with world-renowned filmmakers, brings you a series of award-winning films and takes you to Serengeti and beyond, to this Eden in Africa.
For centuries, lions, with their awesome size and power, have played a large part in human history, art, and folklore. We learn at an early age that the lion is king of the beasts, and that a group of lions is a pride. For many years, scientists have been wondering about those prides. Why, of all the wild cats in the world, is it only the lion that lives in groups? There do appear to be advantages in hunting together. There are advantages in sharing family duties. But there are also the tensions and conflicts that beset any social grouping. In unraveling the story, one thing has become clear. The males, for all their size and showiness, are more like consorts than kings. If lions can be called the crowned heads of the animal kingdom, then the enduring monarch is not the king, but the queen. The Serengeti National Park in Tanzania is famous for its concentrations of grazing animals. These mixed herds of wildebeest, zebra and antelope, some 2.5 million strong, in turn support Africa's largest population of lions. There are between 2,000 and 3,000 of these great cats in the Serengeti. They live in social groups that occupy a stable range of around 25 square miles. The adult males are outsiders who join a group of lionesses. They are unrelated to the females, and so are always a rather uncertain element in the makeup of the group. The females, on the other hand, are all born into the pride and form an association of mothers and daughters, grandmothers and aunts, all with their own offspring. The females have known each other most of their lives. They are the owners of the territory and provide the ongoing stability for the pride. It's obviously a successful system, but why did lions, uniquely among the world's 35 species of wild cats, evolve a social way of life? There are other big cats in the Serengeti. About 500 cheetah share the lion's domain, but they are completely solitary, except for occasional coalitions of males or groups of females with cubs. The woodlands and river valleys that fringe the plains are the haunt of another big cat. But here, the leopard leads a lonely and secretive life. The Serengeti National Park is over 5,000 square miles of plain, plateau, woodland and hill. Lion studies began here in 1966. Back then, the main concern was whether lions had any impact on the numbers of antelope. But the question of social grouping has engaged every scientist who has worked here. And over the years, they've put forward a number of ideas. The lions of the Serengeti and the nearby Ngorongoro crater are the best studied in the world, and it's taken over 20 years to unravel their story. The present Lion project is headed by Doctors Craig Packer and Anne Pusey. To keep tabs on hundreds of lions ranging across 1,000 square miles, they have fitted some animals with radio collars, whose different signals can be picked up from 10 miles away. The collars do not bother the lions and are removed at the end of the study. Years of radio tracking have provided the researchers with an accurate picture of just how far and wide the lions roam, and the size of the pride territories. Today, Craig Packer and Anne Pusey are able to recognize over 300 individual lions. When the project started over 20 years ago, no one knew how to identify individuals on a long-term basis. Colored ear tags were tried, but they were soon chewed off. At that time, the only way to recognize individuals was by natural scars, broken teeth, or ear notches. Lions' ears, like a boxer's nose, are usually a measure of their life experience. Young animals are unblemished, older ones often ragged. And, of course, they constantly change, making identification uncertain. So the ID cards need to be constantly updated. Some lions do have very distinctive features, blind eyes or broken tails. But even the most frustrated scientist would never resort to selective amputation as a means of recognizing individuals. Clearly, a better method of identification was needed. Fortunately, it was discovered that every lion has a unique pattern of spots where its whiskers grow. These are easily visible with binoculars and differ in number and position on each lion. They are the equivalent of human fingerprints, and like fingerprints, are constant throughout life. Now that individuals could be positively identified year after year, research moved steadily forward. The first likely explanation for living in groups concerned hunting. By cooperating, it appeared that groups of lions were more successful than solitary hunters. They not only had a better chance of success, but they could also tackle larger animals, even buffalo, which a single lion could not hope to bring down. By hunting cooperatively, lions are more successful in catching animals. But there is a price to pay. Being part of a large group means that the food has to be shared. These two lionesses cooperated on the kill, but may soon have to share it with the rest of the pride who did nothing to help. So perhaps this was not such an important advantage. To test the cooperative hunting idea further, the researchers needed exact figures on the comparative feeding success of groups and single lions. They decided to follow the lions constantly, day and night. The lions of the Serengeti are mostly nocturnal. Using headlights would have affected their behavior. But in the light of a new technology, nighttime surveillance suddenly became possible. Night vision goggles, which boost available starlight to visible levels, enabled humans for the first time to study lions after dark. The researchers followed lions around the clock for 4 days and 4 nights at a time. It was exhausting work, but their efforts were soon to be rewarded, for the information from these observations would considerably undermine the cooperative hunting theory. Earlier research had concentrated on the daylight activities of lions. However, that had provided only half the story. Now the nighttime observations started to fill in the missing chapters. Provided only half the story. Now the nighttime observations started to fill in the missing chapters. As expected, the lions of the Serengeti turned out to be nocturnal hunters. In their search for food, they often walk 10 kilometers in a single night. It is a great contrast to the lazy lion image they so often portray during the day. But for the researchers, it was not simply their day and night observations, but their long-term studies that were to produce the results they were searching for. Every month, for 2.5 years, Craig Packer, Ann Pusey, and their student Dave Scheel worked in shifts tracking the lions. Now, for the first time, they had a chance of measuring hunting success in the dry season and in the rains.
We'll see you later.
The seasons in the Serengeti are not hot and cold, they are wet and dry. They affect lions not because of the presence or absence of water, but because of the massive abundance or desperate shortage of food. When the migratory herds of over 1 million wildebeest are in a lion's territory, life is easy. But then one day, they simply trot away, heading north in search of greener grass. The lions who are resident on the plains now face 6 months of hard times. There are still non-migratory animals around, but these are few and far between, and the short grass provides little cover for hunting. Faced with starvation, the lions will eat almost anything now. Ostriches are starting to nest, and often lay single eggs and abandon them. But the coconut-sized egg presents a problem. A lioness cannot even pick one up, for the gape of her mouth is not wide enough. The males can, but with their jaws fully stretched, they cannot bring their strength to bear on the shell. A really old lion with its teeth well worn down may sometimes get enough leverage to crack the egg, but more often this 2-pound package of high protein is simply not available to them. Because cheetahs hunt by running down their prey with a 60-mile-an-hour dash, the short grass and lack of cover is not a disadvantage for them in the way it is for lions. But it cuts both ways. The cheetah's dusty sprint across the plains can be seen from miles away, and in the dry season, there are always hungry lions watching. The cheetah will not risk injury by trying to defend its kill. It wouldn't stand a chance. It simply feeds as fast as it can in the short time it has left. In the dry season, lions scavenge almost 30% of their food like this. It's an easy way for a single lion to find food, but this female lives in a group. She did all the work and will now have to share the meager spoils. The researchers found that lions in large groups do comparatively well, even in the height of the dry season. Now they are forced to tackle whatever remains, even the heavy and formidable buffalo. For a single lion, a buffalo is a difficult and dangerous catch. However, by cooperating in the kill, this pride has almost a ton of meat between them. But the most important result of the 4-day studies was completely unexpected. Solitary lions that hunt and feed alone are actually no worse off than individuals in large groups. And surprisingly, lions living in small groups of 2s and 3s have a distinct disadvantage. Without enough firepower to hunt really large prey and forced to share their smaller kills, these lions have a much harder time. Because single lions do so well by themselves, cooperative hunting cannot explain why lions are social. There had to be another reason. This lioness has a withered leg that she may have damaged whilst hunting. She has had this handicap for over 2 years and would certainly have died without the food and protection she receives from her pride. She is even raising cubs on the meat her companions provide. But her presence is a drain on the resources of the more productive pride members. She owes her life to her companions, but they would be much better off without her. Group living benefits the injured, but cannot be the reason for being social, for the healthy members of the group are penalized by this system. A predator with a useless leg is by definition a failure and should fall by the wayside. Why should healthy lions share their food with this cripple and her cubs? It was the way the females reared their young that suggested another clue. In the Serengeti, lions give birth all year round, and in each pride, cubs are often born in the same month. After a 3.5-month pregnancy, an average of 2 or 3 cubs are born, usually in a cave or a gully where they are protected from hyenas, leopards, or even other lions who would eat them. When the mother goes hunting, the cubs are left unattended. But for safety, she will move them every week or so to a new hiding place. After some 6 weeks, the mother and cubs join the rest of the pride. The cubs will take milk until they are about 6 months old, and this suckling raises interesting questions. Lions are unusual among large mammals. They will nurse cubs that are not their own, often having youngsters of very different ages feeding side by side. A mother's milk is a precious resource, and in most animals it's reserved exclusively for her own young. A mother should be careful not to squander her resources feeding someone else's baby. So why do lions do it? The females in the pride are all related. Any cubs born into the pride have some genes in common with every lioness. Obviously, it's in the mother's interest to raise those cubs most closely related to her, and this she does. Each lioness may also produce different antibodies in her milk, so that suckling from several lionesses may give the cubs a greater immunity to disease than if they fed only from their mother. But the researchers found that females in these maternity groups are often thinner than solitary mothers, and maternity groups don't always show communal nursing. So cooperating to nurse and feed the cubs could not be the reason for the development of a social way of life. researchers had to look elsewhere for the force that was molding lion society. Could the females be forming groups because of a threat from the much larger and more powerful males? To his own cubs, a male lion is a gentle and tolerant father. But just how does he behave towards his cubs in times of hardship, when he is hungry and the kill is small? In nature, his selfishness is justified. If food is limited, it is best that the male, the guardian of the group, is well fed and strong. But even now he will not hurt his scrounging cubs, no matter how hard they press him. But because the males are such powerful fighting machines, and because of the way lion society operates, they are a potential threat. And more it looked as though this was a reason why females grouped together. To understand this, the researchers needed to take a closer look at the strange and frightening dual role played by the males in lion society. An established lion pride presents an idyllic scene. The group of related females who own the territory all know each other well and get along together. In a pride with 3 or more females, the cubs have a good chance of surviving and thriving. The males are not blood relatives of the females, but are treated with affection by both lionesses and cubs. The males themselves are tolerant and affectionate. They are good fathers, but unlike the females, they do not stay with the pride all their lives. The overwhelming driving force in nature is to reproduce. It is not enough just to sire a lot of cubs. The males need to stay with the pride and help to protect their cubs and the mothers against other predators. By staying, they increase the chances of their cubs surviving. The females want the males to stay and to use their great strength to protect them and their territory. But protect them against what? Males can only reproduce successfully if they are with a pride. A group of breeding females is a prize worth fighting for, and there are always unattached males wandering the plains in search of mates. Those wanderers are a constant threat to the stability and safety of the lionesses. Perhaps here was a pressure strong enough to have caused the evolution of their social system. To address these questions properly, and keep in close contact with their subjects, Craig Packer and Anne Pusey have had to adapt their own lives, often spending exhausting days cooped up in a vehicle and occasionally camping rough, miles from their home. In the 10 years they've been here, they too have started a family, and their children sometimes accompany them on their field trips. In addition to watching lions and recording their behavior, shabby, stuffed specimens from an English museum. Looking up at a 3-year-old big cat, even a stuffed one, and realizing just how tall it is understandably an unsettling experience for a 4-year-old human. The pride's territory of between 25 and 100 square miles belongs to the females who occupy it for many years. The males are outsiders who spend about 2 years consorting with these females. To ensure the safety of their cubs, they protect the territory, conspicuously patrolling its borders and roaring. Urine sprayed onto prominent bushes along the borders leaves a pungent message that lingers for days. For any strange male, the signs are clear. Stay away. The territory is occupied. This investment in time and energy by the pride males is worthwhile. It increases the chance of raising cubs and so passing on their genes. But they really do not have much time in which to raise a family, and there are always outsiders waiting and watching. For these young nomadic males, time is also of the essence. At around the age of 4, after a year or so spent wandering and perhaps befriending other males, they must find a group of females to take over and mate with. They are coming into their prime. They must make their move now. The resident male has a large investment in his cubs and will fight fiercely to protect them. But he also has to consider the cost of defending that investment. Male lions are sometimes killed in takeover fights, defending or attacking, but usually it is a matter of numbers. And when push comes to shove, an outnumbered lion is wise to back down. Because they are armed with such lethal weapons, lions try to avoid fighting. The resident male is eased off the territory with a long chase. And these heavy animals, unused to distance running, are soon foaming at the mouth. At the edge of his territory, the male makes a stand, and the advantage of numbers is immediately obvious. Even with the upper hand, the two young intruders avoid a frontal attack. A bite to the spine is a killing bite for a lion. But again, if they can avoid it, if they can reach a decision on points, they will not escalate the conflict to where one of them might be killed. 2 to 1 is really no contest. It's just a matter of establishing the new order firmly and clearly. The king is down. Long live the kings. Any immature males living with the pride are chased away too. They are of no benefit to the new pride owners. They're just more mouths to share the food supply. Again, this is done with minimum force. The young males are threatened and pressured, and so persuaded to move out. They will now spend a year or two as nomads, growing in strength and experience. Then they too will have their chance to take over a pride. The new masters of the pride have come for the females. One sniffs the spot where a lioness has urinated. Wary of these new and strange males, the females have wisely gone into hiding. But in this hide-and-seek game of life, there is another and more immediate problem for these males. They cannot mate until the lionesses come into season. But the females already have cubs, and so will not be ready to mate for another year or more. The new males simply cannot wait that long for their chance to father some cubs of their own. They are in their prime now, and may only have possession of the females for 2 years. Just 2 years in which to ensure their genetic patrimony. They cannot afford to look after another male's cubs. They cannot spend their short time at the top protecting another lion's young whilst waiting for their turn to mate. They have done their waiting out there on the plains, where they wandered for years in search of this opportunity. They can wait no longer. If the females lose their cubs, they will come into season within days. The imperative for the new males is overwhelming. They must kill the cubs. Despite all the years of research into lion behavior, infanticide has rarely been seen and never before filmed. For all its apparent ferocity, the killing is only an expression of the urgent demands of the situation. But if the male's behavior seems harshly pragmatic, perhaps the female's is even more surprising. Bereft of their cubs, the females now have exactly the same drives as the new males. They can expect around 2 years of stability. If they are to raise cubs, they must start immediately. Within as little as 24 hours after losing their cubs, the females come into season and start flirting outrageously with the new males. The females are nervous at first, a bit scared of the new males, but the orgies in the first few months after a takeover are a good icebreaker, and soon strong bonds are formed. Despite this appearance of eager compliance, the females have a trump card to play. For them, takeovers are uncertain times. The new males may themselves be ousted by other more powerful coalitions of males. So despite all this mating, the lionesses do not become pregnant until the new males have been with them for 3 months. By then, they have shown they've got what it takes to protect the territory and their new family. Within 6 months, the pride will again have cubs. The lionesses need to raise these cubs successfully, and it seems that by grouping together, they might provide a better defense against the disruptions of the larger and more powerful males. Very little was known about the dynamics of takeovers, and the opportunities for observing them are rare. So Craig Packer and Anne Pusey resorted to experiments to test their ideas. They played tape recordings of the roars of a strange male to groups of lionesses with cubs and recorded the results on video for analysis. On hearing a strange male lion calling, the females immediately close ranks and approach aggressively, while the cubs move back. It's an impressive show of combined force, and a very good reason for forming groups. But it is not just against males. In order to defend their territory and ensure a constant food supply and a place to raise cubs, it is just as important to keep out neighboring females, and the larger female groups are more successful at this. But what about male lions? They lead very different lives to lionesses. This 4-year-old and his companion are nomads with no territory to defend and no lionesses of their own. All males start life in a pride, but unlike their sisters, their stay is short. Occasionally, a young male will remain with his natal pride until he is 4 years old. Then he'll wander away of his own accord, driven by his desires to find unrelated females to mate with. But more often, the young males are chased out during a pride takeover. For the next 2 or 3 years, he'll wander the plains fending for himself, a fugitive with no crown or country. He'll keep well out of the way of the powerful territorial males. Not for him are there showy displays of scent marking and roaring. It is during this phase of his life that a young male will befriend other nomadic males, often meeting them at kills. But there's more to these companionships than just friendship. Once again, the researchers tried a series of experiments, and this is where the stuffed lions come in. They introduced a dummy male lion right into the heart of a pride's territory guarded by a coalition of males. The rigid and unreacting dummy looked a bit inhibiting, so it was reinforced with recordings of a strange male. With 2 against 1, the results are predictable, as we have already seen. But what was surprising was the unpredictable. These 2 males are completely unrelated to each other, but their response to the intruder is exactly the same as if they were blood brothers, not the deadly rivals one might expect them to be. So important is the numbers issue that completely unrelated males will unite to form a more effective fighting team. Research has shown that a single male has virtually no chance of holding a pride of females. But as a team, the males can cooperate to defeat other males. They will share the females and they will look after the cubs regardless of which of them mated with the mothers. Such cooperation between unrelated males is most unusual in nature, but for lions, it may be the only way an individual male can pass on his genes. It's now been discovered that many of the world's solitary cats do themselves commit infanticide. Grouping together to defend their cubs could be beneficial to them, so why are these cats not social? For most cats, group living, however desirable, would just not be feasible. Some, like the cheetah, tackle small prey and cannot afford to share the meager rations. Others, like the leopard, live in areas where there are few large herbivores, insufficient to support a group of big cats. But for lions, after 20 years of research, the pieces are finally falling into place. Of all the factors that have been investigated, it is now clear that only 3 are important for group living: the capture of large prey, the defense of cubs, and the defense of territory. What enabled the lion to become social seems to be a combination of its size and the availability of food. The Serengeti, with its huge herds of grazing animals, provides a superabundance of food for predators. But many of those herbivores are simply too large to be brought down by any of the big cats, except one, the lion. And once captured, they can often be shared. So lions can exist here in very high numbers. With no constraints on the food supply, the evolution towards a social way of life for lions was not only possible, it became necessary. A lioness needs a large territory to provide her with safe den sites and permanent food and water. The best way to hold that area against so many other lions is to gang together, and it is best to do that with relatives. By living in stable, related groups of mothers, daughters, and grandmothers, lionesses ensure the maximum transmission of their genes and form the solid foundation on which lion society is built. By banding together, they are able to keep out wandering single males and so reduce the disruption caused by takeovers and cub killing. Their numbers enable them to own, defend against other females, and bequeath to their daughters a well-defined territory that contains all the essentials of life. The males, spectacular fighters and lovers, help guard the territory and father the cubs. But they join the royal family for only a few years before being forced into exile. The males have no permanent claim to the land or the crown. That belongs to the lioness, the queen of the beasts.